Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm joined by my good old friend, Aram in Toronto. What up, Aram?
Not much. It's good to be back again.
So we're headed into the stretch run of the season. How do you feel?
I'm super excited for the stretch run. This is, it's a long season, and we kind of like are seeing the end of it ahead, and there's lots of things to talk about that I want to ask you about.
Before I get into it, I have a quick announcement. The Oakland Warriors podcast now officially has a YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the show notes in the description. Right now, it doesn't have 100 subscribers yet, which is what you need to get like a custom URL or whatever. So if you want to be helpful, and if you want to check out some of the episodes on YouTube, I'm starting to shoot more video now and everything. Like this episode is going to be on video. You're going to see me and Aram because that's like what everybody wants from a podcast. Right? They want to see whatever. But no, if you want to check it out, just check out the show notes and subscribe if you can, and that'd be hugely helpful, and I'd appreciate that. All the episodes from the past, all 198, are there now. And from here on out, I'm going to post new episodes there as well. Some will have some video, some may not. Just trying some stuff out, and maybe some BTS stuff, behind the scenes stuff, not the Korean K-pop band.
You'd have a lot more subscribers that way.
Yeah. But yeah, check that out. Anyway.
Hey, 198 episodes. That's like Family Matters territory. Or, you're in heavy syndication. Not quite Cheers, but it's a lot of episodes.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It was an effort to turn all the audio MP3s into video MP4s and upload them and do all like the metadata description and everything.
But I'm sure it's also an interesting reminder of also, because this is not just this season, but it's also last season too, like the trajectory of these seasons, which, we're 2/3 into this one, and, how different have these seasons been? And I mean, I'm sure you didn't go back and watch all 198, but or maybe you did, but I mean, season to season, it's just so different, the trajectory of it. And I think a lot of people are, myself included, kind of worried about where they are right now, but kind of thinking about where this team was last year. At this time too. I mean, it was just like kind of barely hanging on. Obviously, in a much different place, much different roster, much different kind of context in terms of the global pandemic and whatnot. But still, I think, every season has a different life, and, it might be fun for people to go back and check that out, just to, help us remember, like, this season has been fun, actually. Even with the hand wringing, it's been dramatic and it has given us lots of things to talk about, really.
Yeah,
in a good way.
From the outset of this season, like, there just seem to be so many storylines with so many of the players, the organization, and going through all the past episodes. No, for real, like, I had to read all the descriptions, the titles and everything, because you're like, which one is this? And you just go chronologically, and it's crazy, right? Because like, you start the season and you go through like all the Wiseman stuff, him getting COVID, and then him starting out and showing all this potential, and then his injuries, the Kelly Oubre stuff, and then getting to where like Steph broke his ass, broke his tailbone or whatever. And then when he went on that run, and closed out the season, and then in the off season, actually also I found the episode where I talked about Jonathan Kuminga for the first time, and I was like, oh, I was right. And it's not like I'm a scout watching him and whatever, but just seeing his first G League game and whatnot. And I think like I was like, oh, if the Warriors are lucky enough to get the fourth or fifth pick in the 2021 draft, they should pray that he falls to them. And I was like, oh, and he did at 7. Yeah,
Prescient. So people
yeah.
should go back and find all those little nuggets. I remember one of the first episodes I was on with you was one of the first 2 games of last season, and if people remember, Andrew Wiggins did not play well in those first 2 games,
Nope.
and I don't know if I said it on the episode or if it was just in a chat, but I was like, should we trade him for Buddy Hield? And look at him now, right? Like, and part of that is, learning who he was, right? And seeing him play in this system and, quote unquote Warriors culture and all those kinds of things. And so, it's really cool to see that upward trajectory. Sure, there's been, lots of bumps along the way with some other players, but that's all part of it, and that's why we watch it, right? Because it's fun. It's fun to see those kinds of things happen or not.
Yeah, it's awesome. And going back to the Kuminga thing, like I was like, oh, way back when I said that he reminds me of Kawhi Leonard. So I'm like, oh, I got to pat myself on the back for being right about something. That being said, it's like this season, like you were talking about, the trajectory, and it's been, you can't take the season for granted because it's been a lot of fun. It's been ups and downs and whatnot, and we knew it was going to be a certain type of season, right?
Yeah. And I definitely want to get to, what's ahead. But, just looking back, I mean, I think it was Curry who said it like the very beginning of the season that this was going to be a season of thirds, right? And, it kind of naturally is because of where the All-Star break happens. There's about a third of the schedule left, maybe even a little bit less than that. But Curry said the first third, it's going to be us, learning each other, getting off to a good start. The second was going to be working Klay and Wiseman back into it. Obviously, we haven't seen Wiseman yet, but, and it was actually, adjusting to Klay, but also adjusting to not having Draymond, right? And then the last third would be, the playoff push, but which that's just inevitable, right? Trying to peak at the right time, trying to get everybody healthy. So like those are the obvious things, but so this last third is coming up, and I want to know what is something that you're looking forward to, and then we'll talk a lot about what we're worried about. But let's start with what's something that you're looking forward to in this last like 20 some odd games.
I'm looking forward to seeing Draymond play with Klay and Steph. Yeah. I think that'll be an amazing moment to see them running the offense, and it'll just be very comforting overall to see, and I also want to see them start clicking. I want to, because we're all confident more or less of like, oh, when they're all on the court together, they've never lost a series, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to still believe that, but obviously with Klay being out 2 years and the game being a little bit different, these guys just being a little bit older, I want proof positive of that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as being a huge James Wiseman believer, I want to see him on the court. I want to see him on the court, plain and simple. I look forward to that because I do think, knock on wood, there's no setbacks, that he'll be able to just do his simple role, play his role, right? He said in a recent presser that he's just going to do whatever they need him to do. And I feel like if he showed up in September, if he showed up in December, then he would have to be integrated into the offense as more of a critical cog, right? Because the team's identity wasn't really there yet, hadn't been set in stone, but now it is. And he would be almost coming on as if he were a buyout guy, right? Just come in, you're here for this. And then he could take the rest of the off season, to develop, get healthy, and work on the other wrinkles and nuances of his game. So I'm looking forward just to seeing that and seeing him dunk a lob for the first time, just to remind people like, oh yeah, he's good for that. He's good for something, so.
No, it's definitely like, we're already good. you can just help us continue to be good or help us get better, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to come in here and save anybody. Last year he was definitely, in part just trying to adjust to the league, but they weren't a good team last year and everybody was trying to make them a better team and they just weren't that good, right? So plugging him in, yeah, maybe sitting out and seeing how good they are, seeing what they do, just having a better understanding of the league and how it works. Hopefully he can just plug into it and he just needs to play 8 to 12 minutes a game,
Mm-hmm.
and do those things that he's talking about. It's hard to know how much the players are just trying to pump his tires and they're talking about, man, he's gonna be a beast, he's gonna dominate, and how much of that is real, because I don't want to get my hopes up too much, and I have always believed that no matter what, it all comes down to Steph and Dre, and and now Klay, obviously. But I feel like if you have Steph and Dre, you have a chance against anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to see those three, like you said, and I want to see these young dudes just flying off the wings with those three, because like we have such an exciting stable of like young dudes now, and just to see them all working together in this final push. And I always look forward to seeing Draymond play at a high level. So yeah, definitely. I would say I'm kind of like, Kerr likes to do his thing where, hey, everybody needs to be ready and it may put you in at any time. But
like Anderson Varejao.
So God, please don't. But I think he's done a pretty good job of coaching this year, and I think bringing on veteran coaching staff, and then shifting some of the roles has really accentuated his coaching job too. But
Yeah.
I kind of want to look forward to figuring out what his rotation is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's getting there. He mentioned that Kuminga is gonna be part of a playoff rotation, and so that was kind of nice to hear that commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just more like, who does he trust? Because like, how much more Bielitsa do we need to see? And I think they're trying to give him as much rope as possible to get his legs back, his shot back, or whatever back that he doesn't have right now. And
right.
And they got to do it before that buyout deadline, right? So we kind of just got through the dog days, and you see it in the players, right? They really needed this break.
Mm-hmm.
They were really lagging in this last 5 games. 1-4 record after that 8-game win streak.
9. So that was 9.
Oh, 9. Okay. So there was probably one that they didn't deserve, but or at least a few. But yeah, really making that push is something I'm looking forward to. Okay, now more importantly, because as we've talked about many times, we are old school Warriors fans, and so worry is a big part of our fan experience.
Yeah.
So tell me something that you're worried about that is not Draymond Green not coming back, because that's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we should all be worried that if he doesn't come back, then we have no chance. And then the general worry of injuries. So throw those out because those are a given. So what is something that you're worried about, and rate your like worry level?
Man, I don't know if I'm worried about this, but more just like curious and concerned, right? Worry would imply that like I think it's going to be a huge problem, but I want to see if Steph can become consistently Steph again, because we still haven't seen it. I think I said on one of the episodes that he's out of his slump, right? And I think he is, because he doesn't have the terrible body language from January. He fixed his shooting issue, whatever, shooting from the balls of his feet now instead of the toes or whatever that Marcus Thompson talked about. But this whole iffy streak that they've had in the month of February, if Steph was what he was last season, then it's all moot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then he put so many of those games away. And granted, last year Steph was like MVP level, but right now he's dropped off, right? So that is a question mark for me, because not only does like Draymond fix so many things, normal Steph fixes a lot of those things, right? He hits a couple of those threes. I mean, I've forgotten some of the games recently, but one of them he went 1 for 7, right?
Yeah,
1 for 7
yeah.
from three. It may have been the Nuggets game, I'm not sure, but he hits two more of those, they win. He hits one of those, they win.
Or it's just even some of these games where he's missing these layups that that he often makes, right? Or is, you know, shoots at a way higher percentage typically. Just like these things, you know, in a 2 or 3 point loss, like makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be the primary thing for me, to be honest. My level, if we're going scale of 1 to 10, is like I'd say like a 6, you know, because I feel, especially after the All-Star game and the break, I feel like Steph, for all the years he's played in the playoffs and big, you know, big situations, like he knows when to kind of take it to the next level. And I think maybe I'm hoping that he's kind of reset, and with 23 some odd games left, that he sees what needs to happen, you know, and that he kind of just starts clicking, and especially after hitting 16 threes in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say
that'll snap you out of it, hopefully.
He sees what works again, and it's like, oh yeah, 16 threes in a game, that'll work.
Yeah. So like that's why my level is about 6. You know, I
Okay.
feel like he'll come through at least a little bit more. Maybe not MVP level, but he could still get there.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of those slumps were real, and those percentages, like they were over an extended amount of time, they seem to have kind of rebounded a little bit. So I likewise, I'm not overly worried, but you make a great point that it's like, you know, if he plays like that, you know, the Steph in the 15-5 run, or he just even like a 85% of that, like we're gonna win a lot of games down this stretch. So my concern, and I guess I'm probably not the only one, is just Kevon Looney and center depth. I brought this up before, I think, but you know, Bielitsa's always in my mind. But you know, he's been great this year.
Bielitsa?
No, sorry, going back to Looney. Looney's been great this year, and he's really saved us because of his he's just been solid. But man, he looked tired. Just like limping into the All-Star break, and he's our only center right now, right? The only real one that you really trust.
Yep.
So, you know, sure, they can play a little bit at a time with JTA or Kuminga if they have to. And, you know, sure, the NBA is smaller than it's ever been, and, you know, so on and so forth. But you like to have the option, and you don't want to lose a guy like that who knows the system so well, can match up against those big bodies, or just like lean on them for, you know, 15, 20 minutes, right? It makes a huge difference. So I guess, you know, sometimes you look at something that maybe is not that, it's not this massive big deal, right? And you kind of overblow it. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, like Looney, like they would survive that. But yeah, that's my big concern. Actually, I have one of those big picture concerns. But so my worry about Looney would probably be like, I'd say a 7, because I'm generally a worrier.
Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is too good to pass up. I'm talking between the legs 360 windmill good. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take your shot at a big payday. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Basketball Contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code TBPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 and over, minimum age and local requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the TN Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Okay, this is a bigger kind of a bigger issue. It's not player specific, but so my worry level about this one is pretty big, 7 or 8 at least. Is this the best window for a championship that they have and that they're gonna have with the kind of core 3 guys? Because I think we have talked, and I think other people have talked about, like, oh, I think we thought they'd be in better position next year. Like the young players have a year under their belt. Klay has a year plus back, but the West is pretty winnable this year. And they also have really good role players who are gonna be in a playoff rotation that they're not gonna have next year.
Right.
Namely Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton II. I don't think either of them will be back. So do you think that this is the best window that they have to win another championship?
That's a good question, because I think it could be this year. Honestly, it could be this year. It could be next year, right? The Clippers coming back are going to be a big threat.
Yep.
All these young guys who are leading their teams, they're going to have more experience and whatever. But yeah, we'll definitely lose some folks, but we might pick up some ring chasers. We might pick up a couple other guys. Klay might be better next season. He's might have even more confidence in his body. Kuminga will be better. Moody will be better. Poole will be better. And hopefully Wiseman will be better. So that being said, if you have an older Steph, an older Klay, an older Draymond, but also an older Kuminga, an older Wiseman, Moody, and Poole, then that's 7 dudes to start building role players around. And the great thing about this mixture of guys is I'm excited to see what happens, what evolves, right? Like you said in an episode from earlier in the season, it's like Joe Lacob's not going to trade these young guys because they're all kind of like startups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's a venture capitalist. He's not going to trade. This is what he lives for. And as a longtime fan, it's like I've always loved this homegrown talent. So like just seeing how it plays out is fascinating to me. Are the old guys going to start showing their age more so? And are any of the young guys going to make that leap? So it could be that this is their best chance, but it all really depends. See, it's one thing to say, like, if this were just a bunch of old teams, the way that a championship team just like ages and fades into the sunset, right? They eventually get beat by a younger up and coming team, but there's a good mix. So
Yeah.
it may or may not, you know what I mean? So like, I think this year, next year, and even the year after are all going to be really interesting. I forgot when Draymond and Klay's contracts expire. Is it after next season or the season after?
I think it's after. I think Klay might be in 2 years.
Maybe Draymond too. Then I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure.
But regardless, like assuming that they're all under contract for another couple years, then I think this 3-year stretch, it's not the only chance that they have, but it might be their best, where like the old dudes are still up there close to the peak and the young guys are rising up, because they're all not going to be at their peak powers at the same time. It's just finding out, So
well, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that Draymond at the beginning of the season said, like, I don't know if this is going to work. And a lot of people doubted this path because it's like pretty rare to, but it's a great point that you're making, right? And that it's like, yeah, if this was an old team, I definitely would be like, this is their only shot. They got to go for it. I mean, they are going for it, but they have these young dudes who are coming up, and ultimately, like, that's why they chose to do this. I mean, aside from the kind of like salary implications, blah 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 blah,
Mhm.
you know, they that's why they're doing this, and to extend that window.
Or else you end up like the Lakers, where it's like, we're all old dudes. We got to go all in and trade all our assets
Yeah,
to like
yeah,
try to win a championship.
yeah, and then now LeBron's like, you know, looking at the door, right? He's
Yeah.
contemplating his way out, right? So, okay, well, you know what, you made me feel a little bit better about that worry. You know, like maybe don't worry so much and just enjoy this. But you know, I just feel like they have had a really good mix, and they've hit on a few of these minimum dudes, right? And you always have to, right, in a salary cap kind of roster structure, is that you have all these, they're always going to be top heavy, and you need those minimum players to pull more than their weight, right? And it's just been cool to see minimum guys like Otto and GP2 do that. But yeah, you're right. You know, maybe they doesn't mean that they can't find the next one. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm a little less worried now. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, even more so, right? Because it's like, whoa, you get to play with Steph, and like there's like these young dudes that, you know, so like I said, at the very least, it's going to be really interesting. And that's all you could really ask for.
It's true. It's true, and it's been an interesting season. So, I'm curious. Do you have any predictions on the playoff seeding? Like right now, I mean, they're way behind Phoenix. They're not going to get the number one. They're hanging on to two, right above Memphis. And then does it matter? And who would you like to see in the first round?
So, in terms of where they'll end up, I think they'll, again, it depends on when Draymond and potentially Wiseman and even Iguodala come back. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that they'll probably land in 2 or 3, right? I mean,
Yeah,
looking at the rest of their schedule, skimming it, it doesn't look that bad. They're playing a lot of like mediocre teams. So I think they can stick in the 2 spot. But Memphis, they're coming on strong. I mean, plain and simple. So it really, really, it just depends. It's going to be 2 or 3. Phoenix, they're not going to catch. That's a huge chunk, 6.5 with 23 games left.
yeah. There's
And
no way. There's
even
no way.
with Chris Paul out, it's not like the Suns are going to tank. I mean, there's potential that they will make it interesting because they'll lose a few more games than they would otherwise. But you know, the Warriors maybe could get within 3 games, and that would make it fun if there's like a couple weeks left. Outside of that, it'll probably be 2 or 3. In terms of who I would want to see the Warriors play in the playoffs, if I'm just looking at who is in the top 10, well, I'll tell you who I don't want to see. I don't want to see the
Yeah.
Lakers. I don't want to see the Clippers. I don't want to see the Timberwolves. I will say that. Yeah.
so,
Like, yeah.
so you want to see the Nuggets or the Blazers?
I will take the Blazers. I will take the Nuggets. I will take the Mavericks. I will take the Jazz. I mean, that would be later rounds, most likely. But those are just my preferences. I'm not scared of any of those teams per se,
Yeah.
but there are things about each of those teams where it's like, oh, if things just kind of tip in the wrong direction, things could get a little uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
Lakers with just LeBron and their vets, all of a sudden they could just go on a hot streak. The Clippers, even if they don't have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they beat the Warriors recently, and they just have a good mix of Ty Lue and some veterans and toughness and size. And then the Timberwolves, I mean, they just have confidence. And hey, I'm a big Anthony Edwards fan. He's like that X factor to me. So, you know, in general, I wouldn't fear any of them, but that's more or less in the first round, at least. That's who I would want to avoid. Then, of course, the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a later rounds, but they're definitely, I think they're my number one like team, like that. Just, you know, they just play us so tough. They match up so well against us, and it's just, I mean, it would be a great series, but one that I may have the least confidence in. I think for a first, I mean, hey, this is gonna be one of those things we'll come back at the end of the season and be like, oh, why did I say that? But I wouldn't mind seeing the Nuggets. It's kind of like, what kind of series do you want to kind of, you're going to get through it like relatively unscathed,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a Clippers series is that. Like they're going to do whatever they can to beat up Steph, and the Clippers won't win, but it could easily go to 6 games, and it's like a tough and physical series, right? But yeah, I kind of feel like the Nuggets are the team that I don't mind. That could change. They get Jamal Murray back, Michael Porter Jr. Who knows what kind of shape they'll be in. Now, actually, I wanted to ask you. You said Lakers that you don't want to see them. And I mean, you said it's like LeBron and plus anybody. And sure, that's always a threat. But are you more that you just don't want to deal with that kind of circus, and the attention of that?
Kind of. To be honest, like I'd be tired of like the LeBron storylines. I mean,
Yes.
I've said this before. I know I respect him as like for what he's done, but I'm just tired of like, I mean, people might say, oh, like a Warriors fan getting tired of the media hype of LeBron James, but like they coddle his storyline so much. Yeah. Like it killed me like last year with all the Space Jam, all the Space Jam stuff.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, come on, man. Like I don't need to see everybody just like hyping this up and going through like you said, the circus, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would personally love just to see the Lakers not even make it into the play, right? Just for fun. And it's been a few days. I've totally forgot that AD got hurt. So we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, it's primarily that. I don't think the Warriors would lose at all, but yeah.
No, I don't think so either. And, as a higher seed, you and a veteran high seed, like we don't really fear anybody, but you still do think about these matchups for sure. Right. And that's just something to look at in this final third of the season. And I think mostly is that you look at the matchups because you need breaks to go your way. Right. Like, especially, this is not the KD team, KD era Warriors. And so, and even they had moments of like real drama, right? That you didn't know if they were going to get through. Right. I mean, mostly injury related, but this team is not as good as those. And so they do need breaks. Right. And every team needs breaks. So, so that's why the matchups really do matter, how they line up and, are you going to get home court and those kinds of things. I guess my last thing kind of alluded to a few things that came out of the All-Star weekend was the Chris Paul injury. Like, I mean, personally, I don't think it really matters. They're so far up, Devin Booker was like, oh, it's great. He'll get to rest his legs. And it's probably true, right?
It's true. Like his hammies that he always pulls, right?
Yeah. But it is hard to be out for, however many weeks.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. It's a long time, right?
Yeah.
And then just get back into the flow of things. And so for any players that are coming back from injury and our own as well, like Draymond coming back, how much time is it going to have to kind of ramp up into playoff mode?
Well, that is another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino, E-P-I-N-O, or at Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com. And just another reminder, check out the YouTube channel and subscribe to that. It'll be kind of mirroring these episodes, just another way to listen if that is more convenient to you. The URL is in the show description in the show notes. Be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. You can find Aram on Twitter at Aram Collier, ARAMCOLLIER. And if you're so inclined, please do leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and say nice stuff about it. That would be hugely appreciated. Thanks for coming on, man.
Great to be here.
All right. That's it. Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time